Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Talking Assistant. If you're going to tweet this, we would appreciate if you use hashtag TalkingAss. Joining me tonight, I have, of course, Kelly. Kelly, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Good evening, everybody. Kelly Tool at KELLYTHUL on Twitter.
And, of course, in the other corner, we have our fearless leader, Tony Solo. Tony?
Hey everybody, I am Tony Solo, and we're here on Talking Assistant again.
There's really no easy way to get started with this week's episode because, as our fellow assistant fans out there know, the beginning of this week was a bit of a rough patch in the history, the ever-growing mythology that is the assistant. In that, for the first week, not only do we not have 2 episodes, we didn't even have a single episode this week. How did you guys feel Monday morning when you woke up and didn't have the assistant?
Well, I can tell you I was devastated because pretty much, you go back to work after watching, Sunday night, the highlight of the weekend right now is watching The Walking Dead. Got to go back to work, and it seems like for the last month or so, looking forward to those 2 episodes and being able to find some time at work to kind of view them and enjoy them was something to look forward to. And I was actually sobbing in my driveway on Monday morning before I pulled out to go on my way. How about you, Cal?
Well, life's a series of rungs on ladders, and you just kind of go from one to the other. And Monday morning assistance was one of the rungs on my ladder to get through the week, and so it wasn't there. So it was difficult, but you do your best to soldier on, and then further compounded by a little further up the ladder said, does this mean that we're going to be talking assless for this week? And so it was a challenge there.
Rungs on a ladder, I like that analogy. Let me tell you guys a story, because it plays into what Kelly just said about whether or not Talking Ass would even happen this week. Monday when I got up and we saw that there was definitely, and I believe there was a bit of a warning beforehand that there may not be an assistant, but Monday morning when we saw that there definitely wasn't any new assistant episodes, a part of me just wanted to skip doing Talking Ass this week and just pick up again where whenever the assistant started. So I actually didn't go into the office on Monday. I live near Pennypack Park, and I went into the woods, and it stretches for miles around the Fairmount Park area, and walked into the woods, and I just felt so stripped bare inside that I took all of my clothes off. So I'm walking through the more dense part of the woods naked, and I see a tree that's fallen partially over. So I climb under it, and I'm just feeling not empowered, but maybe comforted slightly. And I realized that what stopped the tree from falling over were 2 other trees that the branches had latched onto, these 2 trees that were standing still tall next to it. And I realized that I was like the tree that was falling, and I needed the 2 of you to catch me. So Talking Assistant had to happen.
That is a moving story, Mike.
Thank you, Tony.
I'm not catching you naked, though. I just gotta let you know. Sorry.
It was a metaphor.
Oh, good. So I'm not. So metaphorically, I'm not.
No, I was definitely naked, though. The trees were the metaphor. I was 100% naked. A park ranger found me, and he delicately wrapped his coat around me and kept me at the ranger station until Jen picked me up.
You must have had some splaining to do at that point, huh?
Mostly, I think they took pity on me. I tried to explain my situation to them, which obviously they didn't really understand, not knowing about the assistant and the whole backstory. But then when I explained that I don't know if you guys have body piercings,
No.
but sometimes in sensitive areas, when they get really cold, it can be very painful. They can freeze up a little bit. So I think they kind of took pity on me because I was in physical pain at that point, not to mention my emotional distress.
Okay. Um, I just read a tweet, and I don't know if we should read it during the show because it is not hashtagged talking ass.
We
But
would
I'll
appreciate it, everyone, if you would hashtag these tweets talking ass. But maybe
but
if you know for sure it's in relation to this, maybe we can make one exception.
well, it's from your side piece's husband, Mr. McGivna, John McGivna. He says on Monday we felt betrayed, bewildered, and at a loss with no new the assistant. So, and I just want to point out, the previous week we did get two shows when Dylan said he wasn't going to, possibly he was only going to do one and then go on a hiatus.
Right.
So
And that honestly, that's really what kind of took me back by it, because he had talked about, maybe cutting the week in half, like you said, and only doing one episode and then the hiatus. But then we got 2 episodes like normal, so I just thought we were back on track with our regular schedule. And I think that made it a little bit harder. Had I taken those 2 weeks and fortified myself emotionally, I may not have been naked, shivering, and holding my genitals in a ranger station.
But then, through the darkness, a ray of light.
Yes.
because it was
Tony, I believe, got some information by the assistant himself. Tony, do you want to share that with everyone?
yeah, you know, uh, Mike and I bump into each other a lot. Really,
Fully clothed, usually.
yes. It's always fully clothed. It's not usually fully clothed. It's always fully clothed.
Usually.
And okay, we'll go with usually.
and isn't Mike's pet name for Tony Park Ranger? But
No, 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 it's not. So I took it upon myself to send Dylan an email today, and it was short. It was basically, I'll read it. I got it in front of me. Hey, Dylan, how long are you going to leave us hanging? When are the next episodes dropping? No new The Assistant episodes means no talking ass. No talking ass means I have to watch wrestling tonight before Z Nation. Why would you want to punish me like that? Love The Assistant. Bring it back soon, please. And this could bring some tears to your eyes, but at about 5:30, Dylan got back to me and said that I inspired him, and that 2 new episodes were going to drop on Monday, and we may even get a special Halloween show as well. We'll see, but we're definitely going to get 2 new episodes on Monday, which is fantastic news.
This is very invigorating, especially after the emotional torment that I suffered earlier in the week.
yeah, and then we even got a tweet from Dylan. The three of us did. Your three talking asses, saying Monday. So.
Right. So if anybody saw that tweet, yeah, because then Dylan followed that up with another tweet asking if I had seen his email, and I had seen his email, and the first thing I did was shoot off an email to my friends here saying, hey, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So we decided to do Talking Ass anyway, even though we didn't have a new episode to talk about.
I think it's good, though. I think it's therapeutic because we can get everything out. Like me sharing that story of curling up naked in the warm Yannick embrace of a fallen over tree and realizing the special significance that the three of us have holding each other up during our difficult times.
Metaphorically.
Metaphorically.
Thank you.
But the nudity is real.
So, I have a question that I have been approached by several people, and they want to know what's behind the secrecy between the three of us about when we are going to do the talking assistant show. Some people want to know when it's going to be on beforehand, and why is that, Mike? Why don't we have a regularly scheduled time?
Well, I mean, there may not be an exact time, but it does seem like, for the most part, we've sort of stuck to Fridays for this Friday evenings around this time, give or take. So, I mean, I think that would be a good range for most weeks for when you could expect a little talking ass. But as far as why this show is sort of enshrouded in a veil of secrecy, I would say that has to do with things the three of us have discussed in the throes of alcohol-induced hysteria. And since then, we've nipple swore to never speak of certain elements.
I don't remember swearing on anything, let alone nipples. But okay, if you say that's what happened, I'll go along with that one.
I was a lot more sober than you guys. It's because I drugged you.
I'm going to go with that not speaking of it part. I like that. That's good.
Well, that's really all that I can say. I would never turn my back on a nipple swear.
Who would want to?
Not me.
Great band name, by the way.
Yeah, I always thought Black Sabbath was a good band name, but that's just me.
This is a solid name.
So with nothing to speak to, Mike, how would you like to handle the remaining content of
Well, I think that we've covered sort of what we went through this week, this emotional roller coaster of ups and downs. And now I think we are all joyfully looking forward to the future. So maybe we can talk about our expectations, our hopes, our dreams for what awaits us on Monday morning.
Well, so are you asking us to make predictions or
We can call it predictions, but I think at this point it's something deeper. It's more like reaching down inside of yourself and seeing Dylan. But if you want to just call it a prediction, we can do that too. So what are your predictions, Tony?
well, I have no idea where the show is going at this point, but I'd like to make a prediction about what Dylan's TARDIS is.
I would love to hear that.
Well, and this might be just maybe something that I want to see, and not necessarily something that is actually going to show up. But I think Dylan's TARDIS is going to end up being a stripper pole in a strip club. And I'd love to see Dylan, walk into a strip club, right in the middle of a show and disappear inside a stripper pole. Am I wrong for thinking that?
I don't think so at all. My thing is, with his limited budget, how would he do that? How would he do the effect of walking into the pole?
and cover the bail for, I guess he walks in actively filming in one of those institutions, they might frown upon that.
Yeah, there is that, and then there are the bouncers, which
Possibly
the possibility where the police may never get involved. I didn't think that out.
Now, what if, still speaking of walking in on people who are bearing their souls, what if Dylan walked into his neighbor's home and the TARDIS was actually their bathroom? He just walked into their home, doesn't tell them beforehand to get the natural reactions, to let this unfold totally unscripted, and just goes into their bathroom. And when he closes the door behind him, when he turns around, we cut to the interior of Dylan's TARDIS rather than their bathroom.
That's probably a bigger problem than the strip club.
The TARDIS set?
Well, the neighbor's bathroom, especially if the neighbor's wife happened to be in the shower at the time.
There's a price for art.
And then there's the possibility that his neighbor could be a card-carrying member of the NRA, which does add the element of danger to a shoot like that.
Well, I'll tack on, it's interesting because the whole walking in to something, which I guess is kind of how a TARDIS works, so I guess it makes sense. But I thought an interesting scenario would be, and I'm a little unclear on how different regions of the United States play out. So I'm not sure if the East Coast is heavily Muslim or Hindu or those types of things, but I'm assuming there might be some Catholic presence on the like I said, I don't really know how that rolls. But if there happens to be in the Baltimore area any Catholic presence, a confessional would make an excellent TARDIS.
Confessionals make excellent many things.
Okay. Well, Kel, I will tell you, from Boston to New York to Philadelphia and probably down to Baltimore, there's a very big Irish, Italian, German type population. So there is a pretty good Catholic presence, and depending on where you go, I mean, it's the whole East Coast is basically one big giant melting pot. So, yeah, he would, definitely be able to find a confessional. But then again, I don't know how you can film that without getting in some sort of trouble or having some kind of a problem.
I'm not sure what the security situation is currently with churches. When I was a teenager, though, one of my early sexual encounters took place in a confessional.
Okay, and I don't think we want to go any further than... I don't know if we want to...
I was not going to elaborate. It was
Okay.
it was to give the example that security is not tight there, unless it's changed. I am not a churchgoer, so I don't know what the current status of that is.
I think you'll find there'll be the bouncer presence will be stronger at a strip club than at a Catholic church, I think. But that's how it is here, at least.
I'm gonna agree. You're not gonna have the bouncer, but you also have the problem of going into a confessional and trying to film a piece when all of a sudden the little door thing opens up and the priest says to Dylan, "How may I help you, my son?"
Hear me out on this and follow it all the way through. What if Dylan intentionally went into a confessional that was in use and incorporated the confession into the show?
Oh, that would be bad.
In what sense?
I'm thinking in a theological religious context where if you went in while somebody was confessing their
Oh,
sin.
no. Dylan's confession.
Where he confesses
He
to the
went in his
priest.
confessional, the door open, and instead of like running out, he kept the phone going.
And he
and
confesses
he
to being the
confessed.
assistant. And tells the priest the whole story of what's going on. And it'd be very
Right,
interesting to hear
and
the
incorporates his confession into the plot of the show.
His real confession, or because I mean, going in there and just saying stuff to a priest just to get it on video would be, misusing a sacrament, which is something that is frowned upon by the
Pretty
church.
sure all of this would be frowned upon in the church. So I think just discussing the whole filming in the church part, I think that would be frowned upon from the start. So as long as we've already kind of gone past that barrier, why not make the most of it?
You can film in a church. I'm sure it all depends on what you're filming. Like I don't think they have a problem with you filming a wedding or a baptism, but going into the sacristy of a church with the intent of filming a confession is probably one of those things that you want to avoid if you want to, if you're a firm believer and you want to take part in some kind of afterlife. I'd say, that would be going a little bit too far. And Dylan is a church-going type guy, so.
Well, that would have been my next question. Is he a churchgoer? I definitely think that Kelly is on to something, though, with this whole church thing. Maybe there's a way to do it where Dylan won't burn in hell.
Well, you can get close to a church by having the TARDIS turn out to be something like a hearse or a coffin. Because that would be something. Okay, now going into a funeral parlor, just as long as you're not removing the deceased, so you can get in.
So you can break into a funeral parlor and shoot the episode, but not walk into a church and film your own confession.
Who said anything about breaking in? I said go into a funeral parlor. I didn't say break in. There might be a viewing going on, and
you can appropriate someone else's funeral, but not your own confession.
Yeah, because
Please explain this.
Well,
or we can all just admit that it's a good thing Dylan's writing the assistant and is going to determine what the TARDIS is because the three of us kind of suck at it. It's another way to.
We have a strip club, his neighbor's bathroom, a church, or funeral crashing.
but a funeral home, a funeral parlor, is not sacred ground, which is the big difference between. I'm not talking about him going into a cemetery and digging somebody out so he can get into their coffin. I'm just saying
I'm glad that's not the suggestion, Tony.
But I mean, in every funeral parlor, they also do have an area where they have the caskets laid out like a showroom, so you could pick the one that you want for your loved one. So if he can get into one of those, yeah. Dylan could always say, "Hey, can I try out one of these for size?" Because he's a big guy, and But I mean, it would be kind of funny if he literally walked in the middle of a viewing and picked up the deceased and put him down in a chair and climbed in.
But yet, that's not sacrilegious.
It's not, because it's not sacred ground. That's the big difference.
All right,
okay.
Kids, you understand that at home? You can't film your own confession at a church. But you want to crash somebody's funeral, yank the body out of a coffin and hop in? Tony says that's fine.
No. As a puppet, whatever you want to do, you're good.
No, okay, because if it's a funeral, funeral and the casket is in the church, okay, and it's up near the altar, bad. Not a good time to remove the deceased from the casket.
This is the etiquette on throwing bodies out of a casket and taking over the casket.
It's location-based moralism, which was something I wasn't really familiar with till today.
Well, Okay, so
There's a Google Maps layover for it.
I felt bad. Honestly, I felt really bad for a second. Like I'd offended everybody with the, hey, go into the church and film it. And everybody's like, oh, you can't do that. That's terrible, sinner. You're going to burn in hell. Why don't we go into a funeral home and throw that old fuck out of the coffin? You jump in.
no, I mean, you see, when you first suggested it, though, I thought you were suggesting that Dylan just barged in on somebody else's confession.
No. I'm saying
is-
he goes into the confessional, like Kelly said, and starts filming. But then, riffing off of what you said, if the door slides open and a confession starts, keep the camera rolling. Incorporate his confession into the show.
Right, but wouldn't he have to use show elements and show dialogue during his confession, which would kind of make it a false confession, which would kind of make it a bad thing to do, as opposed to if, you know, you weren't doing it in front of a priest. Like if you were
Right.
sitting there in your nun outfit and Dylan was confessing to you, that wouldn't be a problem because nuns can't hear confessions, but most people
And
don't
also
know that.
because I'm not a nun, so
That's right. You're not a real nun, and no
Right.
nuns would be
just so
harmed. in the
everyone's
filming of
clear,
that.
not an actual nun.
But so I was just looking at Twitter, and Kelly doesn't look at the chat window. So, great news. This is another one from John McGivna. I am going to get naked and run into the cornfield at the end of our road. Hashtag talking ass. So that was from John McGivna.
Do it, John.
And then he says, good news is that a confessional is rarely used these days, at least not for confessions and talking ass. So I guess they've actually turned them into toll booths. And Laura has mentioned, Laura Norman, says that Dylan would be going to hell. He would be going to hell if he did what Mike suggests. So
The confessional thing. But again, just to be clear, not going to hell if you yank a body out of a coffin and jump
Perfectly
in.
fine. Perfectly
Not
fine.
going to go to hell, kids.
No. You might get
On
arrested.
Google Maps and funeral homes. There's no hell. There's no entrance to hell from a funeral home.
Well, there's I'm sure you'd be breaking laws, and then you'd have to deal with the family if you were removing somebody's loved one from a coffin. I'm not going to say that there isn't some risk involved, but
hell
again,
is not one of those risks. There's no moral risk involved.
well, let's put it this way. You're not in a church in sacred ground. So anything, I mean, morally, totally wrong to do, okay? But again, if, let's say you were filming a movie and it wasn't really a dead guy in a coffin that you were removing from a coffin so you could get in there, there's nothing wrong with that because it's not really a dead guy. It's not really a funeral parlor. Now, if you use the word funeral, a funeral takes place in a church, which is, again, it's sacred ground. You don't want to do anything that's going to get your ass burned off after you're dead. So.
Now, I've been to funerals where the actual funeral service was held at the funeral parlor and not the church, but with a priest.
I've never seen that. I know if you go to a viewing, usually there's like a prayer service that happens, but in Catholic church, usually there's a funeral, and sometimes it's actually a funeral mass, and that takes place in the church itself.
Right. Well, this is a Catholic funeral, but without the mass element. The priest came, said all of his stuff, and then went to the gravesite and did that whole thing. But there was just no mass element to it.
So everybody be sure and tag your questions Talking God, and we'll be able to answer any further questions for the rest of the show.
This has gone off in a direction that I honestly did not expect.
I do, and I desperately want to pull us out of this tailspin. I want to ask one more question because I'm kind of with Mike on a little bit of it seems as if there should be some consequence to body movement. So let's say instead someone was cremated and Dylan went in and took the ashes out and rubbed them all over his feet to hide the element.
Well,
That's going to be a bad idea, but moral. No problem with that.
Well, I like where your head's at because I have two quick things to add on to our theological discussion. What if
Hashtag talking God.
talking God? Hashtag both talking ass and talking God. What if he did the confessional thing that everybody seems in agreement he would definitely go to hell for, but when he left the confessional, immediately went right back in and confessed what he had just done?
Like that AT&T commercial.
God forgiveness for using the confessional to shoot his web show. Would he be cool then?
Wow. Mind
Yeah,
blown.
blown. I would say yes, but the whole thing is though.
I got your back, Dylan.
Yeah, Dylan's not doing
A very special talking ass Mike saves Dylan's soul.
that.
That's what we do around here, folks.
But Mike is the one who put it out there for him to put his soul in danger. You know.
And he saved it.
Yeah, he saved it. But
Wait, this was Kelly's idea.
yeah.
That's
Well,
true.
okay. So if he does go through with something like that, though, the best thing to do would not be to go to his own parish church where he's known. You know, go someplace else.
Good thinking.
Preferably with very old clergy. So if they become angry and chase him, he can quickly outdistance them.
So in Dylan's email, he did mention maybe a Halloween episode. So do you think we'll get to see the assistant in that blonde wig and those sunglasses?
That would be really interesting to see that. You know, it would be great for the Halloween episode and tie back into Talking God. And a little bit of what Kelly said about Ashes. What if we skip the church, we skip the funeral home, because I still think the funeral home's maybe a little bit morally ambiguous. What if he went to a crematorium? And that was the Halloween episode.
You get ice cream there?
No, it'd be where they turn human bodies into smokable ashes.
Yeah. With like a bag full of marshmallows, something like that.
No, he got into one of the ovens, and that was his TARDIS.
Oh.
I don't think that would work, dude, because sometimes those ovens are on, right? So what if you needed to get into your TARDIS and they were like, you know, smoking up some people?
Mike mentioned art comes with pain earlier in the show.
Sometimes you have to suffer for your art.
So if you're going to dress as the assistant for Halloween, Mike or Tony, how would you costume as the assistant for it? Because this is the first Halloween that the assistant's been going, and so I'm expecting maybe to see one or two trick or treaters dressed as the assistant. But if we were trying to give tips to the kids for the ideal assistant outfit, what would we tell them?
I feel like you have to start with the wiffle ball bat.
I think it's a good call.
Maybe a Ravens jersey, although I think we've only seen the Ravens jersey once. Well, actually in 2 episodes.
Yeah, if you don't have a jersey, would just an Edgar Allan Poe T-shirt work?
It could. But I seem to remember there was a couple episodes where, and forgive me, Dylan, he was wearing an ugly ass shirt in a couple of episodes. So I'm thinking, you know, there isn't a standout costume item. Yeah, there isn't an accessory like a hat. Mike mentioned the wiffle ball bat, so I mean that would be wiffle ball bat or a small lightsaber.
I think it would be interesting to see someone cosplay the battle.
Or wear a Ravens jersey and walk around with a cat, which could be another prop.
A cat and a wiffle ball bat.
There you go. And then either a jersey or a loudish shirt. There you go, kids. That is the assistant Halloween costuming recommendation. In addition to God Talk tonight, which was an unexpected
pleasure.
bonus.
But we did figure out how you can go into a confessional, film an episode of your web show, and then have God forgive you for it. So we save souls here.
Yeah. So outside of Graveyard, I think every episode has been in and around Dylan's
He
house.
filmed in a graveyard.
Yes, he did.
So he's
Graveyard.
cool with the sacred ground thing. Isn't that sacred ground?
It is, but he didn't defile anything.
Well, you didn't see his whole body during the film.
So
It's
I
interesting that
assume-
Kelly
I
went there
assume
because
you're
I was
correct.
going to say I didn't suggest he defile anything in the church, but Kelly immediately went to a dark place.
yeah, he wasn't carrying a shovel with him, and so
Things that would draw attention to you in a graveyard.
yeah. And as a matter of fact, if you remember that Graveyard episode, he was very, very quiet and tranquil the whole time. So it seemed to me that he was being respectful of where he was. So,
I find cemeteries really relaxing.
well, it's
When I-
quiet.
I brought up the shooting location on Google Maps, and the sacred ground was on either side of the access road that he was talking on, because you had the church to one side and the graveyard to the other side. So he was pretty much safe to do whatever he wanted anyway, because he was on like this little road, and it's blue in Google Maps. So
Yeah.
it's-
So,
'cause you can have like a sin view in Google Maps where you can pull down and look and see where you can sin and where you can't. It's really nice.
So that was the safe area, and everywhere else was the lava.
Yep.
So, I mean, earlier, obviously, I was kidding around when I said the strip club, and the stripper pole. I was just, yes. I said it was something that I'd like to see. I, did.
That's sacred ground to some.
Yeah, I guess. But do you think we're going to get some more new locations, or and the playground, which I'm sure was pretty much right around the same area. Do you think we're going to get maybe more locations than what we've seen so far?
One of the things that I really love about The Assistant is that despite it being sort of a low budget guerrilla production, we do get multiple locations in this show, and that's really cool.
Yep, I agree. And I think there are more coming, because I'm wondering with the pending sale on, heavily featured in the early episodes was the foreclosed house, and
Do you think instead of a virtual tour on the realtor page, they have the episode of The Assistant?
I don't know, but I'm gonna check that out. They should.
Well, don't you think that would increase the property value? Excuse me, the property value, because hey, you are now neighbor to, the home of the assistant, or would that detract from the value? What do you think?
And I say up.
I was hoping that was the up symbol.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Interesting.
So anything else for this week, Michael?
I think, as far as I'm concerned, we really touched on everything I wanted to talk about, and our whole weird church talk. And yeah, I think there's not a whole lot further we could possibly go with this.
See, but this is exactly what happens if we don't have an episode or 2 episodes of The Assistant to talk. So
Dylan,
Dylan,
you what you've done.
yeah, you need to recognize the consequences of your action.
Well, I just want to thank you guys for at the last minute getting together and having this little chat, because we could at least feel some kind of normalcy, and hopefully, I mean, hey, in 10 minutes we've got Z Nation coming up, and then we've got Walking Dead, and Monday we're going to get 2 new assistant episodes, and but I want to thank you guys for taking this journey with me, and just being there for me when I needed you guys earlier in the week when I was down at my lowest of lows. Thanks.
You're welcome, Tony, and thank you both for being my trees and holding me up when I fall over.
Metaphorically.
Metaphorically. But definitely naked.
So, do we have any signature way of ending this little?
No, I think just Make sure you guys tweet about this show using hashtag TalkingAss. In tonight's episode, if you want to focus on that, throw in hashtag TalkingGod. And because we know the Pope is a fan, I'm curious to see his tweets about this, where he falls on it all.
Yeah, he's probably going to set us straight, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, I feel like he knows the real rules. We're just sort of speculating on it, and he knows the ins and outs of this thing.
Yeah, he'll straighten us out.
All right, so I guess with that, we'll say goodnight.
Have a good night, everyone.